Good evening, everyone. Let's try that again. Good evening. Much better. I'm Dr. Emily Murase, Executive Director of the Japantown Task Force. Thank you so much for coming out tonight to our Osaka Way open house number 3. By show of hands, how many of you here were for open house number 1 in the audience? Oh, good, good. Open house number 2? All right. Well, we welcome all new faces. We're delighted that you could all join us today. On behalf of the other organizations we're in partnership with, Grace Horikiri is here from the Japantown Community Benefit District, Grace, and Robert Sakai of the Nihonmachi Parking Corporation. Robert's in the back as well. I want to introduce our team from the City and County of San Francisco, from the San Francisco Department of Public Works, Winnie Chang. Where's Winnie? Over here in the pink. Brett DeMarais in the back, yes. Jennifer Cooper, head of the landscape architecture. Tony Esterbrooks, Tony's in the back as well. Trent Teeger from Public Works over there. These are resources, folks that you can approach with all kinds of questions. And from the San Francisco Planning Department, of course, Maria de Alva, Patrick Race, and Deputy Director of Current Planning Division and Historic Preservation, Rich Sucre is on his way, so he should be joining us any moment. And we have today Office of Economic and Workforce Development, Rafa Moreno in the back. He's the one who writes our checks, so we're very glad that he could join us. And from the JTF staff, Administrative Manager Carson Little in the back, and fellow Haruka Itagaki of Japan. She greeted you at the reception desk. And we have another consultant, Anna Carl, who was also greeting you at the desk. And finally, big shout out to our AV consultant, Max Nihei, who makes all the magic work. We are really delighted to have many members of the Ruth-Zawa family here in the front row, and Henry will introduce his family members later. And then from the Office of Assembly Member Phil Ting, we're expecting Naomi Hui to join us, Senior Field Representative. And we have some very special guests from the Japanese Community Youth Council. If you're here from JCYC, please stand up. We have some great contingent from JCYC. Very special welcome to our young people. Finally, I'd like to thank our hosts, the Japanese Cultural and Community Center of Northern California, especially Executive Director Paul Osaki, who's in the back, and Facilities Manager Jennifer Hamamoto. I'm going to turn it over now to our extraordinary senior planner, Maria de Alva, for her presentation.
Thank you so much, Emily, and welcome everyone. Great turnout. Thank you all for coming. We're really grateful that you lend us our time. I think most of you know we've been through a long process while we were able to secure funds and actually start working, but we've been working on this for about 2+ years. So as city staff, we're just truly honored to be working in such an amazing project with so many layers of history. So I'll just go real quick over the agenda. Yes, it's coming. So I again, thank you for coming today. Today's focus, we want to really get your feedback on the preferred design concept direction that we're presenting today. Some of you have already got a sneak peek from the boards. So we're really excited to present those to you and tell you kind of how we got to that point. We know there's been recently some questions about historic preservation, about the landmark designation process with the city. So we're prepared to answer those questions today. As Emily mentioned, Rich Sucre will be here to answer any questions. Diane Matsuda from the Historic Preservation Commission is also here. So we're glad, people care about preservation. We do too. And so hopefully those questions will be answered. Although just to kind of put it out there, there's still a lot of the project that needs to happen first. We're going to go through CEQA, which includes historic preservation review, which will tell us how to proceed with the project. So you'll learn more as we go ahead, but just know that the focus, we want to know what you think about today's renderings and graphics that Public Works has prepared for us. Sorry, I'm going to grab this because it feels weird to be doing stand-up. Okay, so we'll talk just, we'll put the video for the Assembly Member Phil Ting sent to us, and then we'll just talk a little bit about the overview of the project. A lot of you have heard it, but it's good to remind us why we're here, summary of the outreach we've done, and then we'll dive into site analysis and the design development, how we got to the design. And then most importantly, next steps. What's next after this conceptual phase? And then Q&A. So just quickly, I want to read a land acknowledgement. San Francisco Planning acknowledges that we are on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the indigenous stewards of this land, and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place, as well as for all the peoples who reside in the traditional territory. As guests, we recognize that we benefit from living and working on the traditional homeland. We wish to pay our respects by acknowledging the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush Ohlone community, and by affirming their sovereign rights as First Peoples. And now we'll play Assembly Member's video. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Assembly Member Phil Ting, and I'm so sorry I can't join you on the final night of the Osaka Way Upgrades project. But on this momentous night, I just want to say thank you for all the participation and all the work you're putting in to making sure that our Japantown is as great as ever. As you all know, this is one of only 3 Japantowns left in California, and I was so proud to be able to secure $5 million to help preserve Buchanan Mall and really get that famous Ruth Asawa fountain back up and running. I can't be prouder to really be supportive of Japantown. Japantown's been a home away from home for me. I played basketball there many nights and spent many days in the community center. So again, I just wanted to say thank you to the community. Thank you for participating in this very important process. And I can't wait to be there when we turn that fountain back on.
All right, thank you so much. So now I'll hand it off to Henry Weberka, Ruth Asawa's grandson and manager of Ruth Asawa Lanier Foundation. Go. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Let me know how can you all hear me? Yeah, okay. So like Maria said, my name is Henry Weberka, and I am the president of Ruth Asawa Lanier Inc., which is our estate office that manages the legacy of my grandmother. I'm joined here tonight by my uncle, Xavier Lanier, if you want to raise your hand, my mother, Addie Lanier, my uncle, Paul Lanier, and our amazing archivist, Vivian Tong. So if you all have any questions about the project and kind of how it relates to Asawa's the elements of her design, please do let us know, and we'll be happy to answer the questions for you. But that said, after speaking with our entire family, and that includes Asawa's 5 surviving children, their spouses, and my 9 cousins, I think it's important to make it clear that our estate is generally supportive of this renovation project. It is our understanding that the current design proposals are far from final, and that Asawa's cobblestone design will be mapped out prior to removal and replaced in a way that, replaced as it was in a way that is ADA accessible with cobblestone or very similar material. It's also understanding that the existing wooden benches with the concrete panel bench ends and the cobblestone seating surrounding the fountains will remain with slight adjustments to the cobblestone seating to make them ADA accessible. Most importantly for our family, the fountains will be returned to working order and the water will flow again. So big ups to that in consultation with fountain experts. Also important, the refinement of the design will take place with our estate's input over the course of the next year prior to the start of construction. And there will be a clear plan for and funding in place to ensure that the fountains and all of Osaka Way is cared for into the future. So based on our many meetings with the planning team, including Maria and everyone else here tonight, our family has every reason to believe that great care will be shown to preserve the different elements of my grandmother's design. In our research, our archivist and I, Vivian, spent some time at Stanford researching this project specifically last week, and we found that changes were actually made to smooth portions of the Cobblestone River with my grandmother's approval in the 1990s, and that she was aware that additional upgrades to the Cobblestone River design may be necessary at a later date. As some of you may know, Ruth Asawa's public art practice was both community focused and inclusive. And while we cannot speak for her because she is no longer with us, we believe she would support the city's efforts to make the cobblestone walkway ADA accessible in the best interest of the Japantown community. That belief is based on other cases, including her insistence on a parking garage at the DeYoung Museum in Golden Gate Park for seniors and people with disabilities, where Asawa advocated for increased accessibility. In recent weeks, we've had the opportunity to learn a little bit more about the landmark designation process, something we would be open to supporting in the future with a better understanding of what exactly that means. For now, however, our focus remains on restoring the fountains to working order and preserving the other elements of Asawa's design. Our family thanks the Japantown community and planning team for the support and hopes the funds are flowing as Asawa intended in the very near future. We hope the planned renovations make Osaka Way an inclusive gathering space for Japantown residents and tourists alike. So thank you very much for all of your support, and thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Henry. I'll just run through the overview part real quick so we can get to the good stuff. But you probably all know these are just some images of Ruth with the fountains, some of her sketches, which are available at the back if you want to take a closer look. Also, a link to the website. There's videos and interviews and also a walkthrough of the Buchanan Mall itself and all of her work as well. And the concrete benches she designed with the merchants' children back then were now all grown up. So we all know that this is the portion that we're discussing today, Buchanan Mall. Now that we call it Osaka Way, and between Sutter and Post. And this project was identified by the community efforts to the Japantown Cultural Heritage and Economic Sustainability Strategy back in 2013. These upgrades, as Henry mentioned, had been identified before, and they were sort of documented here. And the community fought to get the funding allocation so that this could eventually be a reality. And we see this as a community-led project, and the city is the medium because it's a state grant funding, but we really are following the guidance of the community here. So the main goals identified at the time were to enhance accessibility of the street, especially around the cobblestone, as was mentioned, to restore the fountains and support local businesses, especially now during and after the pandemic with outdoor dining and retail. We want to make sure that they continue to thrive. So Emily mentioned the big team. As you can see, we have really been working closely with our community partners. We were also able to allocate funding for them to have community consultants. So we're very happy that they've been helping us throughout the project to get outreach and design consultation. The project timeline, as you can see, we are there in the little red rectangle. So we're just ahead of the middle of the project. We're just getting to the good stuff because we're ending the design, the conceptual design phase, and we'll be entering the detail design. And that also means that we'll be entering environmental review, which again includes historic resource evaluation, amongst many other fun bureaucratic things that you will hear more about. So we will continue to update you during this process as well. Just super quick history of the space. After redevelopment phase 1 in the Western Addition, the community was able to organize a little bit more to shape how the Nihonmachi would look like. And Rai Okamoto was at the time the director, and he took more care in designing how the space would look like. And then he commissioned Ruth Hasawa in the 70s to design the space with him, the Cobblestone River. There's pictures there about on construction, and then project completion in 76. As you know, the original fountains were made in steel. They had to be recast in bronze so that they could stand against corrosion. And it was renamed Osaka Way in 2007. So just a quick outreach summary. I'll skip through this real quick. As I mentioned, we had been here for a little bit over 2 years, joining you for different community meetings and events, as well as focus groups that we were able to engage in with our design consultants, Megumi and Bensi. We visited JCUAC. We did some merchant focus groups at Fermentation Lab. We had surveys with the many senior facilities around the neighborhood, and then ongoing design charrettes and conversations with the core stakeholders, which include the Asawa family, the Japantown CBD, and Nihonmachi Parking Corporation. So just a few highlights from this engagement. We've heard a lot from the accessibility, of course. We heard mostly, make it accessible while still preserving the Ruth Hasawa design. So that's the challenge right there. Improve visibility of the signage as well. We know there's beautiful signage there, but it's very hard to find. Help revitalize the fountains, and then consider making the walls more comfortable to sit on. Also, add more street and pedestrian scale lighting. Lighting is a big thing here. And then some mixed opinions about the lantern posts, but finding ways to integrate them. Also for planting, we heard a lot more greenery to be seen, especially larger tree canopies. Also improved appearance and location of planters, regular maintenance of planters, and culturally relevant planting. Also considering tables if space allows, complementary art opportunities, and again, improved wayfinding, signage and seating, and supporting outdoor dining as well. This is just a summary of youth, senior, and merchant engagement. You can see more on the boards, but we'll skip this through real quick. And then I'll hand it off to my colleague, Winnie, so she can talk about the site analysis and the design development phases. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So we're gonna spend a little bit of time recapping the site analysis we've shared before for folks who are joining us for the first time. Yeah, so starting with the existing plan, the Ruth Hasawa River design flows north-south on the mall with moments to pause at the 2 fountain areas in the middle of the mall. Flanking the river in aggregate concrete paving are benches, cherry blossom trees, small bonsai planters, and lighting elements. And we have some historic signage on site. On the left are photos of existing signage on site commemorating the work done by Ruth and Rai Okamoto, and plaques acknowledging our cherry tree donors. On the right are examples of other signage that can be added to the mall to commemorate other Japanese culture and connections to the mall. The team will continue to develop these with our stakeholders as we get into detailed design. And here's a look at our required accessibility improvements. As you can see with the blue ADA symbol, we need to add companion seating. That's a minimum 30 by 40 inch level area at each seating area. We need to create level landings from main business entries to the furnishing zones, as seen in the yellow arrows. And we need to create 4-foot clear entries at the fountain entries. Right now, they're a bit too narrow at the openings. The south fountain needs edge detection for those visually impaired using canes. And we would be replacing the cobble with accessible surfacing, not to mention the other slopes that we need to adhere to. A look at outdoor dining and circulation pinch points. Planning early on did a study of primary circulation routes at the site. And we found that most people walked to the sides of the river, mainly because the river is a little hard to walk on. And so because people are walking on the sides, there might be some pinch points in certain areas, especially next to outdoor dining setups. But with the Cobble River accessibility upgrades, the central area would be more walkable. And we, as we were looking into design, we were mindful of sun exposure and preserving views up and down the mall to the pagoda at the Peace Plaza to the south. So based off what we heard from outreach, we had put together a mood vision board for what upgrades to Osaka Way could feel like. We looked at images from Japan and worked with our stakeholders for input. So folks love the outdoor dining at the mall, an idea of more specialty lighting and planting, to name a few things. We found that folks were drawn to village scale elements that help highlight the unique character of Osaka Way. Now, continuing our recap of the second community meeting, we had presented two initial design concepts. Kanso, which was our preservation-minded approach. Kanso was a preservation-minded approach that refreshes the existing geometries of the space using mostly city standard materials and furnishings. And a second option, Datsuzoku, which is an alternative vision for the space inspired by Japanese gardens featuring new materials and furnishings. At the heart of both concepts is the celebration of the Ruth Osawa fountains. Side-by-side comparison, both repair the fountains, both address code compliance issues, but Kanso introduced fewer changes, maintains overall existing site layout, uses mostly standard materials, had less opportunity for more unique design elements, keeps existing cherries with new underplanting, restores existing cobble in a code compliant condition, whereas Datsuzoku introduced more changes, an alternative site design, uses more custom and non-city standard materials, had greater opportunity for unique design elements, adds more planting types, including canopy trees, and replaces cobble with new paving. So here are some design survey highlights. For Kanso, we heard that people like the cobble, like that a cobble can be restored in a way that's ADA compliant, maintains the original character, makes some needed improvements, planter seating, preserves the Osawa landscape design, has a clear understanding of movement winding down the center with more static space on the edges for businesses. And for Datsuzoku, people liked the additional planting and seating and tables, that it looked more natural and scenic, and there were more places to sit and seems more inviting to the community. People like the addition of ginkgo trees and more long seating so people can stay longer and enjoy themselves. And that the path seems more open, creating accessibility for all types of pedestrians. Folks like the cherry blossom trees, and we're excited about a new layout with cherry trees and ginkgos. Folks generally like the idea of introducing seat walls as seen in Datsuzoku. And people generally like the planter seating seen in Kanso. And yeah, so to summarize project priorities, we will be preserving Ruth Osawa's work. We will restore the origami fountains. We'll add more greenery and trees, more lighting, gathering spaces and flexible seating. We'll maintain the visual corridor, enhance the historic signage, and help businesses thrive. So between the survey results and ongoing discussions with our stakeholders, we had a lot of great information to work with. And we got clear direction to develop a hybrid concept that preserves the Ruth Osawa River at the heart of the design. We worked closely with our stakeholders and consultants to find the right balance of adding the greenery and furnishings in a way that highlights and celebrates this one-of-a-kind artwork that we have from Ruth, while addressing all the accessibility updates required by code. We wanted to approach this hybrid design with a light touch, with forms that complement the original design and a site organization that improves pedestrian flow. Big moves on the design are the addition of planting forms at the entries of the mall. Seat walls wrap the planting in convex and concave shapes to create varying social seating arrangements. Cherry blossom trees would be in these planting areas where they would be happier with the increased soil volumes as opposed to the small tree wells and paving that they're in today. Ginkgo trees would line the edges of the corridor to create a sense of height and canopy along the mall. The Ruth Osawa benches would be restored and relocated to areas that do not conflict with circulation and outdoor dining. And we also have opportunities to partner with the community on specialty items such as pedestrian scale light poles, upgraded garden gate lighting, lanterns, string lights, and movable furnishings. And for the alleys, they can be activated with string lights and movable furnishings, and can be areas to reinstall the Japanese language lampposts. And now onto some perspectives. Here's a look if you are standing on Post Street looking north towards the Garden Gate. And here's a look from Sutter Street looking south. And we have all these printed out for folks to take a closer look after this. And we would like your input on overhead lighting options. So this first option, option 1, we're looking at 3 sets of string lights running east-west of the site. We are not showing string lights over the fountain areas, as those might have their own special lighting. And option 2, similar to option 1, but exploring the idea of lanterns instead of string lights. And option 3, it considers a combined string light and lantern option, with lanterns running north-south at the entries and string lights in the middle. Placing the lanterns north-south would keep views to the pagoda unobstructed. And as fun as it is to talk about design upgrades, an equally important part of the equation is the long-term maintenance of these upgrades. The city can install these upgrades as part of this project, but will need supplemental maintenance to ensure long-term success. And so we'll be continuing discussions with our stakeholders on maintenance agreements, and we'll be exploring other avenues for keeping things looking great and working well. And before passing it back to Trent for next steps, we wanted to conclude our design development slides with a comparison of the overhead lighting options we would all like you to weigh in on. And again, these are printed on the slides for your closer look after this. Thank you.
Hey. Good evening, everybody. My name is Trent Tiger. I'm the project manager from San Francisco Public Works. My slide is short and sweet, luckily, because my colleagues did such a great presentation leading me to here. Maria kind of touched on, our timeline of the project so far. You can see that we started over 2 years ago with the initial outreach. We started having meetings with core stakeholders, with community leaders from the Japantown CBD, Nihonmachi Parking Corporation, Japantown Task Force, and with Ruth Osawa's family. Through that, we've had several open houses that several of you have attended. We did our original study of what's the existing conditions. Then we moved on to, okay, we saw the existing conditions, and here are a couple of design options for the community to react to. And then here we are today, kind of finalizing what we call the planning phase, where we have this hybrid option that Winnie just described to everybody. Through that, we've come to a conclusion on this planning phase with a conceptual design, or I believe we're calling it a preferred design direction. And through that, it feels like we've kind of wrapped up. It's been a long process to get here, but at the same time, as you can see, we're kind of just in the middle of the project. Not everything's set in stone. There's a lot of decisions still to be made. There's still a lot of analysis and review to happen. As you can see, one of the next steps on here is the environmental review begins. Part of every city project is we submit our project along with a lot of background information to the planning department to do an environmental review. And as part of that, especially for, I do a lot of projects on streets. If we're just going to pave a street that's already been paved, there's not a whole lot of historical analysis required. in a place like this, there's a little bit more history, there's a little bit more significance involved with it. And so as part of that, there's an entire historical analysis segment of that application. We've, as Henry kind of touched on a little bit earlier, and we'll probably have a lot of questions about, is this landmark designation. As part of that process, it's kind of a separate process from what we would typically go down. But as part of this historical analysis in the environmental review, a lot of those same choices and decisions and analysis happens. Part of that is finding out what defining characteristics of the space should be saved and preserved. And part of that, once we find out what those defining characteristics are, it helps us guide us on exactly how we implement this project. And so kind of with the ending of our planning phase, we begin what we call the detailed design phase. That's going to last roughly 12 months. And through that is where we get into the nitty gritty of the project. We find out, we put our levels on the street, and we find out to the exact quarter of an inch exactly how everything should slope. We want to make sure that if there's a storm, as we've all experienced, and some of you may have some family in Southern California. I'm from San Diego, where apparently it flooded somehow. We want to make sure that if there's another storm, that you actually have flow. One of the big points that's been brought up to us is this idea of I believe the way that the current setup is that a lot of it was actually funneled into the drains for the fountains, which clog them up. So we want to make sure that as we design this, we're careful in exactly how it's sloped. We want to make sure that there's always going to be leaves, there's always going to be trash, but we want to make sure that we create a situation that alleviates some of those issues. And as we finish up the design development, we will, as you can imagine, bid out the contract, get a contractor, and start construction. So it feels, as I said, it feels like we've gone a long way, a lot of work, a lot of open houses, a lot of surveys, but we're kind of just in the middle of the project, and we're looking forward to continuing on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trent. There are a few folks that I do want to recognize. We have the president of our San Francisco Historic Preservation Commission here, Diane Matsuda, up in the front. I saw former supervisor Eric Marr come in. Eric, are you still here? Okay. And then if you enjoyed this food tonight, it was catered by Super Mira. Yasuaki Miura is here. And I want him to know that at every meeting, I echo his complaint that there is no signage about Japantown on Sutter Street, on the Sutter Street side. So we're working on it, Miura-san. And I have quite a few members of the JTF board here. If you're a member of the Japantown Task Force board, if you could wave. They've been very active in shepherding this project. And I want to introduce next a community design consultant. It's very unusual on this kind of project, but given our Peace Plaza experience, we wanted to make sure that there was sort of expert level knowledge. And so I want to introduce Megumi Aihara to come up and just say a few words. She's a landscape architect. She's on the board of Kokoro Assisted Living. So she's really a member of this community, and we'll have her say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. Thank you all for being here today. I think it's very important to come out and be part of what's going on in the built environment. I just want to repeat a few things, that this project was born out of community outreach. The community requested that the Sawa fountains be restored. And you wanted to see some updates done to the uneven pavement to make the whole space safer for our seniors and for everyone to enjoy. And also everybody wants Japantown to become a destination, not only in San Francisco, but worldwide. So these are all ideas brought forth by the community. It's not a project that's imposed on you by the city. It's one that you requested. And so thank you for continuing this public engagement. And we look forward to seeing how the project develops together.
A couple more acknowledgements. Rich Sucre is here, Deputy Director of the Current Planning Division and Historic Preservation Team Lead. Rich. And a special shout out to a member of my board, John Osaki, who really worked closely with Phil Ting's office to secure the funding for this project. So John, can you give us a wave? Oh, and we have Naomi Hui here, Senior Field Representative from Assembly Member Phil Ting's office. So please go over and thank her and the Assembly Member for their tremendous investment in this community project. Give a hand to Naomi Hui. Thank you. So we have time for question and answer. We have some folks who are going to wander with a wireless mic. So if you do have a question, please raise your hand and we'll go between in person here and online. Online, if you have a question, please indicate so in the chat and we'll get to your question. First question. And you could direct it at any one of these people wearing a happy coat or perhaps the Ruth Asawa family if it's specific to Ruth's work. Oh, does that need to be turned on, that mic? Oh, there it goes.
Thank you very much, Emily. This is more of a comment than questions. As a member of the community, I wanted to at least give feedback in terms of the question at hand. For me, is the name, the design, and the maintenance issue. For a member of our community, and this is amazing, the amount of community members that have here tonight. I didn't attend the meeting 1. I attended meeting 2 virtually. And by far this meeting, my concern was, are we going to show up in terms of all the degree of our community? So I applaud all of you who are here to do that. I just wanted to comment on the name Buchanan Street Mall or Osaka Way, because I told staff previously, and I think staff needs to know the historical importance of what Buchanan Street meant to this community. And as you know, and we talk about the redevelopment process, but there was a community pre-redevelopment, Buchanan Street, and what occurred after Buchanan Street Mall. Buchanan Street, before redevelopment, when you talk about J-Town, Nihonmachi, you're talking about Buchanan Street and Soda, you're talking about Post and Buchanan. The identification was, I used to try to be the first dude on the block to be in J-Town because the identification of that historically. I think it's important for members of this community to understand the history that Nihonmachi Parking Corporation and the Niseis who developed Nihonmachi to what it is now as eminent domain came through the neighborhood and our community put what we have and inherit today. And part of that is this change between Buchanan Street to Osaka Way. Again, I don't have a problem with that as long as Osaka Way and the officialities of that are also agreeing upon that change. But again, for me, as a member of the community. Now, all of this discussion is important, but the main ingredient is, personally, I favor the design that makes the simplicity of the mall and enhances that. For all of us in the community who's been here for so long, we want to see the water in Ruth's Fountain, bottom line. And many of us were here before that fountain was there, dedicated when it was there, when it was operating. And under the jurisdiction of the redevelopment agency, that's not here any longer. Part of this is there's got to be a lifelong commitment from the city for the maintenance of the mall. Bottom line. And in terms of the state or whatever, with community partnership, either the Nihonmachi Parking Corporation or a combination of who inherits a lot of the work and maintenance of Japanese Community Benefit District. Thank you so much for the time. I just wanted to comment there.
Yes, that was President of the Fire Commission, San Francisco Fire Commission, Steve Nakajo, who occupied Executive Director of JTF previously. Other questions or comments? Is there any question on our virtual friends? Thanks. Not yet? Okay, we invite our virtual friends to offer a question. Next question here.
Well, I too come from Japantown. I grew up on Post in Buchanan. So my parents had the store Takahashi's and we lived upstairs. And my family and Ruth Asawa's family were old time friends, and including her husband, Al Lanier, who designed that store on Post Street and several others after it. After redevelopment wiped out our street and the whole neighborhood, except for Buchanan, which is what's the only thing left of old Japantown, is what they now call the Buchanan Mall. And it was designed by Rai Okamoto, who distinguished, critically acclaimed architect who went to Yale and then to MIT and then on to Yale to do urban design. And he designed the mall, and he chose Ruth Asawa to do the fountains. Thank goodness. And they were two Japanese Americans who designed Japantown Mall for Japanese Americans in Japantown. And I would like to see it saved, conserved, restored. Thank you.
Thank you, Masako. Any questions from our virtual friends, Max? No, no questions? All right. Other questions, comments? Yes, Lori.
Hi, I'm Lori Yamuchi, member of the JTF board. I just had a technical question about the timeline and the milestones for the project. So you had a general schedule with conceptual design being completed now, design development starting shortly with and the detailed design and construction documents. So an environmental review. So when do you expect the planning commission? Is this going to require planning commission approval? And if so, when is that anticipated? And then when would the construction contract be let? And also, when do the funds from the state need to be expended in order to honor the assemblyman's commitments?
Thank you for the question. As part of the environmental review, to get a little bit on the technical side, typically during the design phase, we don't submit to the planning department until roughly 35% milestone. In this case, because we know that, as mentioned, there's just so much more historical significance, and I think there's a lot more concern for how we're going to go about and implement the project. We're planning to submit that basically as soon as we can. We don't have, typically it requires a little bit more information, but we begin that coordination with the planning department, and we're going to get that application in now. As far as the actual timeline of how long that would take, I can't quite say. It varies depending on, the complexity of the projects. It can last, a few weeks for a very simple, just paving project to, several months to half a year, something like that. As far as kind of like a timeline, as I mentioned, if we kick off the design phase, imminently, I'm projecting it would take roughly 12 months for our design phase. And then from there, we typically have a bid and award process that's around 9 months, at which point construction would then start. It's a little early for me to say how long construction would actually last, but just based on the complexity of it. And obviously we've been working with the merchants a little bit. And so we're trying to develop some strategies with the construction management group at Public Works to see what's the way that we could implement this project without impacting the merchants or impacting them to the least amount possible. Some early ideas are, if we segment the project into quarters, that way you're only working on certain portions. So we're going to come up with different ideas and strategies on that end. Thank you.
Before he slips away, I know Paul Osaki wanted to make a comment.
I have to run to a dinner, but I met with Bobby and Ricky Okamura this morning, and they wanted to donate the usu, the granite bowl that you pound in, to the center. And I told him we already had one, but it's beautiful. So I asked if he would be open to donating it to be installed somewhere on the mall as part of an historic element to it and with a plaque. And I think it would really add an historic sense of place to have something like that. So I'd like to bring that up for consideration. I just want to say one other thing real quick. In 2000, the center received state money to renovate the mall. And Ruth was actually on our committee. And it didn't go through because she felt all the designs that were being proposed were commercializing it. And she was dead set against, she made me move the sandwich boards, by the restaurants, because she was dead set against the commercialization of the mall. She wrote me. And so we had to pull back on the project, and we did the history walk because I didn't want to get into a thing with her. But it's different time now, but that's kind of where she was at. And she wrote me and told me that. So
Thank you.
anyway,
Thank
I
you
think
again, Paul.
it's a different time.
Yes, let's see. We have a response from the Rutherford family.
I think the highest form of flattery, it would be that the mall is vital and lively and used, and that there are these beautiful trees and that there's water. You hear the water on the mall. To have that mall being a place for a community would be the highest tribute. So a little commercial is not going to kill it, in my opinion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. We have one question online, and then we'll come back into the room. Two questions. Okay. Why don't you read both questions, and then we'll answer both questions, and we'll come back to Mary's question.
This is from Gary Kitahata in Zoom chat. In the future, who will have jurisdiction over the fountains if they are not working, DPW or Rec and Park?
And what is the second question?
The second question is from Chris Flick. The preferred design direction is very nice. In photo number 3, it looks like the cobblestone for the river will be rectangular. Is it possible for the cobblestone material to be more of a squarish shape, similar to the existing shape, rather than rectangular, so that the river material has a completely different shape and stands apart from the rectilinear paving? May we vote on the overhead lighting concept in the chat?
Thank you for the questions. For the first question, I believe it was about the fountain and what would happen after we renovate it and if it goes into disrepair. We've been, as many of the people in the audience know, there's been a lot of discussion about maintenance in general for the space. The street, or the Buchanan Mall, is actually an unaccepted street, which has some specific definitions in San Francisco, but one of the biggest aspects of it is that the maintenance and responsibility for it actually falls to the property owners, which is why the Nihon Machi Parking Corporation and the Japantown CBD currently maintain the space. As far as kind of maintenance on the maintenance end, we're still figuring that out. We're having a lot of discussions. We've been meeting with Henry and with Vivian from Ruth Asawa's family and estate to determine exactly how we can go about and make sure that maintenance for the fountains and just for Osaka Way continues on, in perpetuity. There's different strategies we can come up with, and I think one of the biggest is realistically that it may require some fundraising. Some fundraising. As many people know, this project, it's what we call a capital improvement. The funds that we receive from the state and from Assemblymember Ting, they have to be expended. We can't really set them aside for maintenance. And so all of it is going into the actual construction. But we want to make sure that what we install is both robust and easy to maintain. So I don't have a definitive answer on that one, but it's just something that we're extremely aware of and working on at this time. Sorry, could you remind me what the second question was? Gotcha. As far as the actual shape of the cobblestone, I think our intention is just to match as close as we can to what's existing out there. We're coming up with different strategies, whether that's actually reusing the cobbles, which would require us basically to go out there, chip out the mortar, and kind of do a little bit of renovation and place them back. So the shape would just remain. In the case where we need to actually replace the material, we would be looking for some type of source. Vivian, the archivist for the Ruth Asawa estate, was looking into exactly which quarry the stone was coming from. So we'll be trying to source that if needed and it will be roughly in the same shape and pattern as what's out there right now. As far as I think the second part of the question was about putting a like a survey into the chat about the lighting. Is that right? Yeah, I'll let the technical experts deal with that one. Thank you.
Yes, please. All comments in the chat will be recorded. So if you do have opinions about the options on the lighting, please put those in chat. We have a question from Mary, and then right behind her following.
Thank you. Sorry, I have to find out which is the distance I should be using. I have a couple of comments, and unfortunately, they may not be on the higher technical level, but just on a everyday community level. And I'm sure you all know that Buchanan Mall is the main access between Sutter Street and Post Street for Japantown. And the JCC building here houses Kimochi's lunch program. We have approximately 300 people coming for lunch when we're at full access, which will hopefully be soon now that COVID is over. But these people come to eat lunch here, and they come to shop in Japantown. They come to go to the social services at the Kimochi office, which is located on the Buchanan Mall, and then go over to shop for groceries and other items in the larger buildings in the Japan Center. Thanks. So I am concerned about the pathways. A lot of these people walk with walkers. They are in wheelchairs. They have escorts, and they need to be able to walk two abreast going down the pathways. And even as it is set today with a lot of the restaurants, they are blocking that access for the seniors to get to the Kimochi Administration Building and to get to Post Street. So I think that that's something you really have to look at, know what the measurements are for a larger wheelchair with an escort walking alongside or behind, or someone with a walker with an escort on the side. To me, that's just part of the community. And if the community can't use its access, then, you know, are we just here for tourists? Now, I know that that's what pays the bottom line. So I know it's important. And I know that we need to be an attraction to the world. And I think we will be, because what you're doing is a great plan. But these things are things that you need to take a second look at, maybe. And the other thing that I ask you to take a second look at are the cherry trees. Most of those cherry trees were sponsored by the property owners. I own a building on Buchanan Mall, and I have a tree in front of my building that says that my husband, who is now gone, and I paid for that tree, that we wanted this tree to brighten Buchanan Mall and make it an attractive place. I love ginkgos, and I think that maybe they might have a place, but I think that we need to save the cherry trees for this walkway that is really, really the main essence of Japantown, besides maybe the pagoda. But those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Thank you. So yes, for the first part of your question, we definitely have heard that comment time and time again. Can you hear me okay? We have been engaging with Kimochi. We actually came to several Kimochi lunches to give out surveys and develop it with Megumi. And so we heard that a number of times. That's, I think, the main reason why we wanted to find a solution for accessibility while preserving the the Asawa pathways. And if you saw one of Winnie's diagrams, we marked the pinch points that exist now, not only with outdoor dining, but with the existing furniture that's sort of laid out in a bit of an awkward manner because it was added through time. So what this project wants to do is make sure that the furniture is intentional and it's clearing those pathways. One of the things we also did at the beginning of this project is we came out with Disability Access Coordinator Kevin Jensen, who, if you talk to any city staff, you will know that that's the one thing that he will tell us where the accessibility ADA path of travel is, and ensures that any project that we touch that is considering all of these into account. And that's also why, you know, we're regrading the site, not only replacing the materials, but also finding ways that it's not up to code right now, especially cross slopes and others. So that we definitely agree with you and want to do. The second part of the question, yes, the cherry blossom. So if you see, one of our boards has some of the signage. We were made aware that those trees were donated. Our intention is to preserve them. There is, you know, in nurseries there is, I believe, a 50 chance sometimes trees don't make it, but the idea would be that we preserve that, and of course all of the plaques will be saved and restored and preserved so that we can put them back where they were. But that's the intention. If you saw also the renderings show them as white cherries, but they would be pink cherries. I don't know the exact name of the species, but hope that answers your question. Thank you.
So we had a question behind Mary, and then there, oh.
Sorry, I just wanted to add on a little bit to that. As far as it goes to the beginning of the question about the access having two abreast, this is, like, I believe the federal standard for ADA is to have a 4-foot path of travel that's free and clear. In San Francisco, we go above and beyond, and we look for a 6-foot path of travel that's free and clear. So in this case, you know, our design includes that basically so that we can make sure that there's no pinch points. As you can see, we're adding a lot more greenery, a lot more just space being taken up by these large elements, but we want to make sure that, especially with by making the cobblestone river ADA compliant, you're actually creating a lot more walkable space. And so to your second point, Maria kind of touched on it, but our intention isn't to replace the cherry trees with ginkgo trees. The ginkgo trees are just there to enhance or create a little bit of diversity, but still celebrate. And I think the majority of the trees will still be cherry trees. Maria kind of touched on, we are moving them, we are kind of placing them in different layouts. And so as we take them out, our intention is to save as many of them as we can. It's a little stressful for trees when you take them out and put them in a nursery while we're doing construction. But we'll do the best that we can with that. Thanks.
So let's see. We want to hear from the person behind Mary who's been waiting patiently. Oh, I see. Okay. There's a question over here. Yes, Emiko. And then we have a question online. And then finally, I want to challenge the next generation to come up with a comment or a question. So our friends from JCYC, please put your heads together for a comment or a question. Emiko.
I apologize because I'm late to all of this, but how was it renamed Osaka Way? I think it should be the Ruth Asawa Way myself. So that's just, you know, how that happened.
So Osaka Way was proclaimed by then Mayor Gavin Newsom to commemorate, and we have Kathleen Kimura here, to commemorate the Osaka Sister City Association. And so the Osaka mayor came and it was proclaimed to be Osaka Way. We've been using Osaka Way because President Buchanan was a slaveholder, and we're trying to change our language around people that we honor. But also there's another Buchanan Way project happening at the same time. So it can be very confusing to folks about to refer to a Buchanan Way. Osaka acknowledges the fact that many of the early restaurants and businesses were run by folks from Osaka, and we have this very strong tie. But that's some of the background for why there's a sign now that says Osaka Way. We'll go, yeah. Oh, okay. So the businesses officially still have addresses that say, 17, whatever, Buchanan Street. So it hasn't been officially changed. Let's see, we have a question from the internet, and then I know time is short, so we want to hear from our next generation folks. So please think up a question or comment. Max? Okay. Just read them both, yeah.
Okay, the first one is from Mary Claugus. I think okay. The planting areas with understory paintings really uplift the design. It is important that provision be made for maintenance of the gardens. As to the lighting, lanterns be little bulbs. I vote to keep it simple and provide plenty of light for people walking at night. I think the cherry trees will do better in the larger planters. If cherry trees need to be moved, the plaque could move with the tree. The second one is from Rich Hashimoto. Please make sure light fixtures have 110 electrical outlets for holiday lighting. Speaking of cherry trees, there are 2 cherry blossom trees in the crosswalk. In the Peace Plaza renovation, the 2 trees on that side of post were red flagged by the current building code and will have to be removed. Has that been flagged yet?
As far as the cherry trees, as far as the cherry trees go that are near the crosswalk, I understand that the Japantown Peace Plaza is currently going through a bit of a process. Whenever you remove a tree, you have to go apply to the Bureau of Urban Forestry for a tree removal permit, where the process can be long and arduous depending on the community. Basically, you post the tree up for 30 days. If anybody complains, you go to a protest hearing. Depending on what happens at that, you then go to an appeal hearing, which, as I understand, is where the Japantown Peace Plaza project is at right now. It's not shown on there. On Post Street, on both sides of it, I believe that there are 2 cherry trees on each side of the street. Basically, as part of ADA requirements, they're looking to remove those 2 trees because it decreases the sight lines for cars from the pedestrians who may want to cross. As far as what happens on our side of the street, on the Buchanan Mall side, it's still a little to be determined. We'll work with our disability access coordinator on the exact requirements for that. But I believe on the Peace Plaza side, it's still in the process, but they are looking to remove those.
All right, and time is short, so I want to invite the next generation to have the last question or comment. Staff are available here. I know others have other questions, but please feel free to come up to staff and ask your question directly. JCYC crew?
Hi, I'm Hana Korkish from the Japantown Youth Leaders. My grandma lives here in Japantown, and I wanted to say thank you for prioritizing the safety of our community, especially for our seniors and physically challenged by upgrading cobblestone to be accessible. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy, and I also wanted to add that I thought the proposals are very beautiful and very culturally relevant. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Naima. I'm part of Genru Arts. It's like a taiko community like in the Japantown area. And I just wanted to say, I think that like adjusting the cobblestone so that it's like more like walkable and stuff is a good idea, because a lot of the times when we like move drums and stuff from here to Peace Plaza, it's kind of a hassle to have to go around. So it would be great to be able to like go just straight through.
Hi, my name is Noah, and yeah, I just wanted to say 2 things. First, yeah, we have all mentioned it earlier, but yeah, I think it's important to like make the cobblestone pathways smoother. So earlier today, I interviewed a Japanese elderly neighbor, and she has said that she was always concerned about the pathway. Yeah, especially for people who have difficulties walking. Like, yeah, I believe it's important to smooth out while keeping Miss Ruth Asawa's artworks. And also the second thing, the neighbor said she's also concerned about the safety in Japantown. This is based on my own experience, but I've witnessed purse snatching near the Osaka Way. So, and I'm changing my story to my father, but my father once told me that in Japantown, there used to be like a small police box where this police officer used to like patrol the area. And I'm not saying specifically that we should put a police box in the Osaka way, but yeah, I think it makes like people who come to Japantown feel safer if there's such security system, yeah, in that area. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cosmo, and yeah, I've been in Japantown many times, and like the Cherry Blossom Festival, and there's many events that I also participated in. And like Noah said, I think it'll be great to add like new features to this like Osaka Way too, and it increase like the accessibility. But I also think like the tradition is also important, really important to keep and continue to leave it in the Japantown. It's Osaka Way. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, let's give it up for our next generation. So just some final announcements. Please post your comments on the boards. We have lots of Post-its at the registration desk, lots of pens. So if you have additional questions or comments, particularly about the lighting, is something that we want to hear from you about. And we invite our virtual friends to also comment in the chat. Secondly, Henry of the Ruthasala family is happy to field questions about the artist and has offered to take people across the street if they want to see the fountains at night. So we want to thank him for that offer. And then finally, you heard mention of long-term maintenance. We're going to need to make a community effort around that to preserve it once it is completed, the upgrades project. And so we invite you to remain involved. And when you signed in, there was a checkbox if you'd like to continue to get updates. You know, we're thinking about some kind of organization that would support the ongoing upkeep of the fountains and Osaka Way generally. So if you're interested in that, please do let us know. Please sign up at the front desk. And we just thank you all for coming tonight. Have a good evening.